to give you a short little bio on the divine beings who are sitting here in the front row, and they're ready to give to you more than you can know. So Reverend Dr. Melissa Phillipe and Reverend Z. Egloff are longtime students and teachers of consciousness and transformation. They are both ordained ministers with the Centers for Spiritual Living, holding master's degrees from Holmes Institute. Z also holds a master's in spiritual psychology, and Melissa has an honorary doctorate for her contributions to the field of New Thought music. Melissa and Z are founders of Oh My God, and that is an online and traveling ministry. At their virtual home, ohmygod.com. That's really easy to remember. Check them out. Thank you. Yes, it's all right. Everybody together. Oh my God, life. Oh my God, life. Okay, now we've got it. And so at their virtual home, ohmygodlife.com, they offer videos and music, books, classes, and much more. They also speak, perform, and facilitate workshops and retreats nationwide, and they are here with us today. Let's just give them some love right here and now. Yeah.
All right. Okay, are you feeling fortified? Okay, that's good, because our topic today, you need to be fortified for this topic, which is when bad things happen. All right, so there's a quote we love regarding this topic. When something bad happens, it can define you, it can destroy you, or it can make you stronger. You know who said that? Dr. Seuss. Right? Wise dude. Okay, so we like that quote a lot, and we're going to tweak it a little. We're going to say it can define you, destroy you, or deliver you. And we're also going to say that it's not so much a choice of those three things, but it's like a process you go through, and the trick is to not get stuck in being defined or destroyed, right? Because if you think about it, being defined by something initially isn't necessarily bad because you're looking at it. It means you're not in denial, like this difficult thing is happening to me. I mean, we are all humans and divine, and we can't deny our humanity or our divinity, right? So there's things that happen, we want to look at them, okay? And then there's the destroy part. Well, certainly we don't want to be destroyed in terms of like totally decimated, but sometimes there are parts of us, old beliefs, old attitudes, maybe old relationships, old circumstances that need to go, that do need to be destroyed to move forward to that final place of deliverance, okay? So I know that all of us here are in various places, right? In various parts of our life. There might be a part of our life where we are feeling defined by something right now, or maybe even destroyed, and other places where we're feeling that relief and blessing and expansion of deliverance. So this morning, Melissa and I want to each share a story of moving through these three phases in an area of our life. How's that sound? Good? Cool? Okay, Melissa's going to get us started.
So when I was growing up, I wanted to be a rock star. You maybe could figure that out, but I'm not speaking metaphorically. I wanted to totally be a rock star. And not just any rock star, actually. I wanted to be Janis Joplin. Okay, now, yes, I do know that Janis Joplin had a little problem with drug and alcohol substance abuse. And yes, that was a little glimmer into my future as well. So I followed Ms. Joplin's footsteps and for a long time, including becoming a full-blown drug addict at the age of 13 years old. Yeah, now I know how young that is. Anyway, fast forward to after college, I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area to pursue my music, my dreams, follow the footsteps of Janis. And after about 20 years of gigging, all around the San Francisco Bay Area and really working it. I met this guy. We will, for the sake of this, call him Tommy. Tommy was from LA. Tommy he worked in the music business with a very high profile act that shall remain nameless for the sake of anonymity. He knew people, right? He was very connected, and he believed that I could be a star. Now, actually, even more importantly than that, he believed I should be a star. I liked him very much, right? And he wanted to make it happen for me. So he was going to relocate me to LA and develop me as an act, as an artist, and connect me, manage me, connect me to all the right people, and get me a deal. And I was going to be the new, live happily ever after as Janis Joplin Jr. Very happy. Very happy. You can imagine, this was very exciting for me after all those years. I said 20, it was more like 10, but that's a long time of, working toward a dream and not seeing it evolve. And here's this guy. So I gave notice to the blues band I was singing in San Francisco. I gave notice to my apartment manager. I was scheduled to move March 1st. So I gave notice to all my students. I was teaching singing and songwriting to a bunch of students. And I gave notice to everybody, right? Sounds good, right? And I know you're all like, something's coming. So in December, just a couple months before I'm going to uproot my life and completely move, some weird things began to happen. First, Tommy told me a couple stories about friends I had that I knew weren't true. I knew they were my friends, and I knew these stories weren't true. But I couldn't figure out why he would lie to me. And also, these were like totally insignificant things. They didn't matter at all. So I just thought, that's kind of weird, and let it go. Right? Not a problem. But then, the second thing that happened was that a couple weeks after that, another thing happened. He was going to fly me to LA right after Christmas for us to go over stuff and, connect for Christmas and stuff. And he said he'd handle my flights, like a good manager should, right? All I had to do was let him know my availability, which I did. So a few days later, he gave me my itinerary. It had me leaving earlier than I said I could go, and coming home later than I said I needed to return. So both ends of the trip were off. And when I asked him about it, he said it was because of the holiday flight difficulties, right? Availability is not the same around Christmas. That made sense to me too, right? So I was like, okay, well, this is really a drag, but I'll make it work. So a few weeks later, I'm at a gig with my best friend at the time, Brian. God, may his whole being be awesome. He was my best friend for a long time, and he's no longer on this plane. But like a good Janis Joplin wannabe, after the gig I did, he and I were getting high and talking about the gig and talking about life. And I told him about this situation. I was just telling him I was a little bummed out about my travel schedule to go down to LA and be with Tommy and move things forward. And he said, Melissa, that doesn't make sense to me. Flying from SFO to LAX, San Francisco to LA, there are especially then, right? There's a flight every 30 minutes. How are they going to all be unavailable to make your itinerary so inconvenient? And he said, I think you should just go home and call the airlines and just see. So those moments, we've all had them in life where someone says something to you and you go, oh, my stomach just fell to my toes. Because I knew when he said that, I knew he was right. And very sadly for me at the time, he was right. I went home, I called the airlines. Now, this is weeks after he told me they didn't have availability, right? And they still had availability for any time I wanted to go. On the half hour, right? Yeah. So, there I was. Crushed. Confused. WTF. Why? There was no reason for this. And now, what do I do about it? Now what? So it was defining me. It was all that was going on for me. I was angst-filled. It was all I could think about, and I was fully defined. You can imagine. I'm supposed to move. This guy is going to run my entire life. I know no one in LA. It's like I'm giving him my life. And now I don't know why he's lying to me, but he's lying to me. So I like a good person who was being defined by something, I talked to everyone I knew about this problem. I don't do that so much anymore, but back then I wanted everyone's opinion. And I spoke to a bunch of people. And in the process, I learned something that I had not known before. There's a thing. There's such a thing. It's called a pathological liar. Have you heard of this? Have you unfortunately experienced this? So the thing about pathological liars is they don't lie for a reason. They lie just because. Like, and I'm always curious, like, is it because then it's fun to get away with it? I don't know. It doesn't matter. I know to try to stay away from these people. So that's why he had lied to me. There was no reason for him to lie to me about my friends. There was no reason for him that I could find for him to lie about my flight schedule. And then, of course, as in a situation like this, unfortunately, it would be, you start seeing other things, right? Like, oh, yeah, that was kind of weird, too. That was probably another lie. So I just started seeing all these things as I looked back. So now here I am, defined, and not knowing what in the world I'm supposed to do with this. Now what, right? So I'm totally lost, completely defined, and destroyed pretty much, right? But not totally yet until I had this conversation with a friend, and I said, you know, I don't know what to do. I mean, that was my mantra of those days, right? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I feel like my lifelong dream, all I've ever wanted, is knocking on my door. And if I don't move to LA, I'm telling it to go away. And God bless my friend who said to me, you know, Melissa, can I ask you a question? I mean, does your dream actually include you having a manager that you know you cannot trust? Darn it. Yeah, that was my answer. I couldn't go. I mean, I couldn't lose everything, let everything go, and trust my whole life to this guy. I not only didn't know if I could trust, I knew I couldn't trust him. I talked to one person who said, when you have a manager, you need to have a relationship where they say, take an umbrella, you don't look outside to see if it's raining. Well, this was not going to be happening with this guy, right? So I canceled the whole deal. Then I was destroyed. I mean, you're gearing up for something. You're getting ready for this new beginning. It's very exciting. It was for me very exciting. And then all of a sudden, no. And I had given notice to my life. I was going to lose my place to live. All my students, some might stay maybe, right? But I told them I was leaving them, and some of them, they're not going to come back, right? And I left my band. I had no gigs now. Here I was, completely in stage 2 of being destroyed. I was very lost, and nothing seemed like, this place where nothing seems like the right thing. Like you feel like you should probably do something to help move along the process, but nothing feels right. It's because you're supposed to sit in being destroyed a little bit. But I was really lost for months, and I was grieving. I was depressed. I was completely lost, and I had fully succumbed to being destroyed finally. And finally, a friend of mine came to visit from Hawaii. And she said, after hearing my saga, Melissa, this sounds like a really good time for you to come and spend some time with me in Hawaii. And all of a sudden, my whole body went whoosh, energy. I went, yes, Hawaii. I'll go to Hawaii. Okay, I'll go to Hawaii. There's a perfect time for me to go to Hawaii. I know. I'll do a cleanse. I'll go to Hawaii and I'll do a cleanse. Meaning, I won't drink alcohol and I won't do drugs. You remember I'm a drug addict still, right? So I'll just stay away from those things and I'll get clear about what's next for me. This'll really help me doing a cleanse in Hawaii. This will be the great next thing for me. So the only problem with this was I didn't really know how to do life without drugs and alcohol. I did not know how completely difficult this was going to be. To go there and say, okay, now here I am. I don't know how to process feelings and emotions. I don't know. I don't have the tools for this at this point in my life. And I have a lot of those feelings and emotions to process, but I have no idea what to do with them. This is what I experienced in Hawaii for 6 weeks. Okay, so it was good. It was hard. But after returning to home, like a good drug addict, I went right back to using drugs. I kept my word. I did the whole time as a cleanse, and then I went home. Only now, something had shifted. The drugs didn't do the same thing anymore. Because like I had lifted up the rock and peeked my head out to see what was out there, and then you go under the rock again, and it's like, there's a world out there, and I'm not in it. So I suffered first for a long time, months and months, suffered with the today's the day, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to use today, and then, well, maybe tomorrow will be the day I'll not use tomorrow. And then on July 31st, 1989, 33 years, 7 months, and 12 days ago, I got clean. I entered phase 3, deliverance. So now here I am. I'm clean and sober. I'm learning how to process feelings and emotions. And as you can imagine, living life clean and sober, having access to all of my emotional experience and life, and knowing how to move through it more and more powerfully and beneficially, successfully as the years went on. But obviously, this is going to change the course of your life. Right? Okay. So with hindsight, it all seems very clear. I have nothing but overflowing gratitude for Tommy. Because he set me up. Because he was a compulsive liar and because of the heartbreak. One of the best things that ever happened to me in my life happened. And thank you, Janis Joplin, for planting the seed in my dreams of what I wanted to be when I grew up. Because it did take me down the road I did walk. And thank you, Spirit. Right? Because that's the only reason it happened. And thank you, Janis, and Spirit, because the dreams and the way I followed it allowed me to follow my way into my perfect expression of the Janis Joplin dream. Because my rock star dream was way up-leveled for my soul. Because I was singing about the blues in bars. And now I sing about the joy of a spiritual life in spiritual centers. Better for me. And I get to do it with my beloved Z. Oh my God. This is part of why our ministry is called Oh My God Life. If you had told me all that, if you had told me that that's how I would feel about Tommy in particular, that night I went home and called the airlines, I would never have believed you. I would not think, oh, this is going to be the best thing that ever happened to me. No. That is not where my mind would have gone. Sometimes disasters aren't what they seem. I'm not saying that hard things don't happen. They certainly do. Life has hard stuff in it. Sometimes really hard stuff in it. But those bad things, they can be blessings that we cannot know from the midst of the first 2 phases, defined and destroyed. Until we're delivered, we can't always see. Often we can't see. Faith is the only way to see it. So no matter what it looks like, no matter how bad life seems in any given moment, Spirit did not bring you this far to leave you. Spirit did not bring you this far to leave you. Spirit's got us. Because what we call bad things can be Spirit's call to our next level of good if we're willing to be defined and destroyed so that we can become delivered. Are you willing? Awesome. In that case, I give you a really nice blessing named Reverend Z.
Thank you, Melissa. All right, my turn. When I graduated from college, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was an English major. I felt, qualified to speak English. That was about it. There's a joke about English majors. The chemistry major asks, what is the chemical composition behind all of creation? The philosophy major asks, what is my philosophy of life and how can I use it to live better? The English major asks, would you like fries with that? So that's kind of what I felt like I was qualified to maybe serve fries. That was about it. I found myself, at the time I was living in Massachusetts, so I found myself working on a farm on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Now, I had grown up in an academic environment. I'd just gotten out of college. So working on a farm was like this great transition, really different kind of place. Also, I describe myself as gender rich, whole lot of gender going on. So at the farm, I could dress however I wanted. I didn't have to do the whole female corporate drag thing, yeah? So that worked for me too. I loved it. It was a really cool place to be. And not long after I got there, the kid who was running the farm took off to run his own place. And so the owner of the farm decided I should run the farm, right? Now, I should say, I knew nothing about farms, but the owner and I had gone to the same college. He decided I could handle it, right? Now, I should say, at this point in my life, I had discovered the spiritual path. I was 23, and I had discovered the spiritual path, and when I did, I said, okay, Spirit, I'm following you now. You tell me what to do, right? And so here I was, and I was given this opportunity out of nowhere, you're going to run this farm, and I got it, that this was Spirit calling me to my next thing, so I said, okay, all right. I learned to drive a tractor. Oh, that was fun. Little John Deere. And I learned how to farm. So the previous manager taught me how to farm organically. This is in the 80s, And it was great. And I got to hire my own staff. Most of the year it was just 2 people. So I hired my best friend, who I'll call Jane, to come help me and work with me. She was a few years older than me. She was into yoga, also into the whole spiritual thing, right? And so a lot of what we did when you're working on a farm, a lot of it was hand work, right? So we're weeding, we're planting, we're harvesting things. So it was most of the year, it was just the 2 of us out there in this beautiful farm on Cape Cod, Massachusetts, talking away about everything and anything. It was incredible. Now, you might say, Z, you gender-rich nerd you, where's the hard part? Well, here it comes. So after I'd been there a few years, it was near the end of the season, and I was bending over to pick up a really heavy bag of limestone. And when I did, I could feel a little twinge in my back. The next morning, I wake up, and I'm in severe pain, unlike anything I'd ever had before. I go to the doctor, they do x-rays, they take a look at it, they can't really figure out what's going on. They say, you have a leg length difference, maybe some scoliosis, we don't really know. The pain doesn't go away. It just doesn't stop. So here's my define, right? I'm now being defined by this. I'm in my mid-20s at this point. I ended up having to go on disability. I couldn't work because I had chronic back pain. It just didn't quit. So I'm absolutely in the defined stage. moving pretty quickly into destroy because they gave me drugs to stop the pain, but the drugs just made me totally checked out. I didn't want to do that. So, but then that meant being in constant pain all the time. I couldn't work. I couldn't really do anything but just sort of lie in bed all day. This was the one time in my life where I actually considered taking my own life. And actually, I thought of how I could do it, which I now know is really not a good sign if you're at that place, right? And I'm really, 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 really grateful that I am here now telling you about this story as something that happened to me that I got through. But at that time, I was just absolutely lost. I tried a bunch of different things, right? So I tried physical therapy and chiropractor and acupuncture and acupressure and, a whole bunch of different modalities. Nothing worked. But kind of all those things combined helped a little bit so that I was able finally and kind of ordered to go back to work part-time. I could be there. And I'll never forget my first day back. I show up back at the farm, and Jane, my bestie, is there. And she says, I have something to tell you. And I said, okay, what? And she says, I'm running the farm now. And I said, oh, yeah, I know. You've been running it in my absence. Great, thank you so much. And she said, no, I'm running the farm now. The owner wants me to do it now. And I said, oh, okay, well, how come? And she said, well, your pumpkins are too small. Now, she wasn't speaking metaphorically. I had been farming organically, and some other old farmer kind of shamed the owner, like, you're Paulus, your pumpkins look really small. Why aren't you using the good chemical fertilizer, So that made because he knew I didn't want to do that. So, so Jane said, no, he wants me to do it because I'll use the chemical stuff and all that. And so I said, okay. So how long have you known this? And she said, it's been a few months now. And I said, and you didn't tell me? She said, no. Okay, so I'm back at the farm, but I've been demoted now. I'm still in constant pain, and I've now lost my best friend because she's so awkward about this whole thing, she can't really talk to me about it, right? And we used to work side by side talking all day, so here we are now working side by side, not talking at all day. I'm still in pain. So at this point in my life, I'm on full-on destroyed. Like, I have nothing. All the things in my life have been taken away. All I had was my spiritual practice, my faith. That's it. And I clung to my spiritual practice. I meditated. I prayed. I read spiritual texts. And I found a spiritual community because that's what I needed. That's what I needed to get me through. The first sign of deliverance came through a book that was given to me by a friend of mine in my spiritual community. It was called Healing Back Pain by John Sarno. And so at this point, a couple years of being in constant pain, I read this book, and within 6 weeks, my back pain is totally gone. So this is a mind-body technique by a doctor. He was through Columbia University. He's passed now, but on the East Coast. Our workshop is connected to this. So after 6 weeks, I'm now free of pain. So that's the first deliverance, right? And that allows me to kind of think more clearly, to be a little more grounded and okay, first step out, now what? Because I'm still working at this job that's not working for me and with my friend and, So I started to meditate and think and pray to Spirit, what? What do I want to do? What am I most passionate about? Well, it was spirituality and psychology, actually, personal growth. And I looked into programs, so some of y'all appreciate this. No, there's no online. I went to the library. Remember those? Yeah. I went to the library and did some research and made some phone calls and found that there was a couple programs. So remember, I'm in Massachusetts. There was a couple programs for spiritual psychology on the West Coast. So I call, I apply, I go visit, I interview, I get in. So 30 days after I get in, I'm driving by myself across the country from Massachusetts to California to go to this where I knew no one in California, to go to this program in spiritual psychology. I had a little Honda Civic hatchback with no radio, so I had a little tape player on the seat next to me playing cassettes of gospel music all the way across country, because my whole life had been destroyed in Massachusetts, and here I was taking the leap of faith to just go to something new. I didn't know what. And when I think about it now, everything in my life started to change for the better once I let go of that old life and planted myself in the new one. And I can look at my life now and see that every area of my life that was destroyed back then has been absolutely transformed and delivered now. So that technique, the John Sarno work that I used to heal my back, also I had chronic fatigue. I used it to heal that. A host of other things. Melissa has had the same result. And we now teach about it, and it keeps me healthier all the time. My health gets more and more thriving because of that technique I learned because of what happened back there. My best friend, I now have my best friend ever, Melissa. And the work that I do is so much more of a fit for me. I now get to be in all my gender-rich glory, talking about what I'm most passionate about, right? And it was because I clung to my faith, right? That's what got me through. And I know for all of us, when we look around the world sometimes, we look at our lives, or we look around and things seem to be falling apart, right? That's when we need to cling to that spiritual sight. Because where we see chaos, Spirit sees opportunities. Where we see destruction, Spirit sees new beginnings. Where we see closed, locked, boarded, shut doors, Spirit sees pathways to deliverance. Pathways to deliverance. I'd like to close with a passage from our book, Everyday Joy. In a moment of crisis, it can be hard to see any benefits. But many of the worst things that happened to me brought new growth and opportunities. When I remember this, even in the middle of challenges, I open myself to a powerful perspective. Bad and good, black and white fade away. Spirit softens the sharp dichotomies. Blessings exist in everything. The affirmation is, I am always in the middle of a miracle. Please say that with me. I am always in the middle of a miracle. Let's say it again. I am always in the middle of a miracle. And so it is.